Hello. Boo! Hello. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another session at the Mackmyra Inn, your local V pub. I think Mickey, is this our second session back on Wednesdays now?
Second Wednesday night session, sir. Second Wednesday night session.
That's it. I think we started things off with an excellent one last week with the chaps from the New Union in Kendal.
And the Kendal Whiskey Festival, Rich. Don't forget the Kendal Whiskey Festival.
That's it. Talking about, obviously, the Kendal Whiskey Festival that's happening in December that we're very much looking forward to. Back again now for another Wednesday session. We have Ed Leigh from Top Whiskies. Good evening, Ed.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you. Thank you for having me along.
We're delighted to have you here, Ed. So, Mick, before we sort of kick things off, as we usually do, any updates that we have for our regular patrons?
Sure. As most people should be aware, we have a new seasonal out on the streets. Bjork Sav, so Birchsap. Our newest seasonal finished in Birchsap wine casks. There it is, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. It's lovely out the fridge, believe it or not. If you've not tried it, get stuck in. It's available on our web shop and from many of our retail friends up and down the country. That's the UK. One of them being with us today. So that's what we've got new. We have a new moment coming soon as well. Ooh. That's all we can say about it at the minute, though. I was going to say at the moment, but then we're just going to get all confused about moments and minutes and stuff. We don't need that malarkey.
there's a good joke in there, mate. We can crowbar into a future session, I'm sure.
I'm sure we can get something out of it, Rich. I'm sure we can get something out of it. We're back tomorrow night for our monthly tasting with the core range and Bjork Sav. So we'll be tasting Bjork Sav tomorrow night. And we've got a friend of the show and one of our other retailers as well, Ben Bowers from the Spirit Specialist. He should be joining us for the tasting tomorrow. So that should be pretty cool. And then our guest next week for the inn is the fantastic Madeline Schmoll. From the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society, or SMWS, if you want to say it a bit faster.
Very well done. Yeah, that's it. I think that's about it for. I think the tease that we said we might do for the moment. I think you've.
That's pretty much what you said in a minute, though, Rich, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? That's all. And it's coming soon. But meanwhile, while you're waiting, enjoy Bjork Sav.
Indeed, yeah, and that's been going down. Incredibly well, I will say. I think we're approaching that 1805 mark, Mick.
So that must mean. And I did cut off this week. Yes, result. So, guys, obviously that's 1805 or 1905, but it's 1805.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm in Friday mode still.
Exactly. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. So it's 1805 somewhere at least. So that means me and Rich get the round in. So Ed, what are you having, sir?
Well, you mentioned one of your seasonals earlier on, and it's a range that I really like. I think you guys have got some funky cask finishes. I like how you're really keen to experiment and explore blends that are often quite unusual. So I thought a sensible starting point for me would be one of your previous seasonal releases. I don't know whether I'm going to pronounce this spot on, but Jack Tilka, something like that.
That might be, Ed. Sorry, that might be the furthest away we've had so far.
Oh, was that painful? Go on, correct me.
It's not that bad. It wasn't that bad. Yak liquor.
Yak liquor. Okay,
but even then, I'm giving it some artistic license as well. For a British person saying it. Yeah.
Well, I'll paraphrase and call it the berry whiskey.
Yes,
one I enjoyed reviewing a couple of weeks ago on the website, and I thought it would be a sensible dram for this evening.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
So, what are you having?
Well, I've actually gone in a similar direction to where Ed has, because spring is certainly here. Summer's round the corner, not sort of too far away at least. I appreciate probably a bit ahead of myself there as far as summer goes. But I've been drinking spring-like whiskies of ours the last few sessions that we've done. But because it's so miserable outside where I live, I thought I'd go and to mix things up as well, because I don't want to drink the same thing all the time when we do these. I've gone Vinterglud. So I've gone for one of our autumn winter releases as well, same as what Ed's got there. So he's got the autumn release from last year. I've got Vintagler, which is sort of a bit Christmassy, perhaps. You know, mulled wine casks and things. One of the most complex cask recipes, I think, of any of the seasonals that we've had. And we talk about this every now and then, but anyone that's interested in seeing, Ed mentioned about interesting things that we do with blending and things in our single malts. Have a look at our websites where you can find the product sheets for things, and you'll see the casks listed in there. And the Vintagler is probably, I think, the most complex one that we've had so far. Let us know, everyone that's joining us this evening. You know, Stephen, Tamara, and everyone else that's with us, our patrons. Let us know what you've got in your glass. And Mickey, as fancy as ever, I saw you sit down with something that had a nice looking little hat on the top, it looked like to me. So what have you got?
So I've gone for a bit of a way back Wednesday feel as well, Rich. And out of my sample cupboard, obviously when I go out to customers and stuff like that, I don't tend to take the full bottles with me because that's a whole lot of bottles to be taken. So I put things down into 200ml bottles. And luckily enough, in the back of my sampling cupboard, I found a 200ml sample of Apple Blonde.
Oh.
Yeah. Man,
nice.
So I'm like, oh, you dancer. And it ties in with what I'm doing on Saturday night as well, the guys from Whiskey Nest. But what I did with that was I took a Normandy apple and pear sparkling, Normandy apple and pear sparkling juice from a well-known, well-known high street food shop that has a food hall, and just poured it over ice. And always my mint garnish because, you know, I've got that never-ending mint supply in the kitchen. That's the thing, Ed. I always garnish everything with mint now because I never have any garnishes knocking about apart from this mint plant that lives in my kitchen window that just keeps growing forever.
Perfect. Gift that keeps on giving.
I've got a basil plant on the windowsill that has been looking rather sad for some time, and I don't know what I can do to help it along the way. So, but I'd much prefer to have some mint, I think, in the house. Tamara's got the Grunt Tea on. I nearly went for the Grunt Tea tonight, but it was too spring and summery for me where I am, and the weather I've had outside. So I've gone for something warming to warm my bones. Right. So yeah, we've got some drinks in the glass. I think, Ed, what we usually do with our VIP patrons, of which you are one, is ask them at the beginning of our sessions before we start making it up as we go along. Just to tell us a little bit about yourself. And, you know, I think Top Whiskies, I hadn't realised when we first met, I'll just sort of digress quickly, just how well followed you were on Instagram in particular. So I think there will be some people tonight who will absolutely know who you are and where you're coming from. But for those who might not, you know, please give us a little bit of background into yourself and how you got into whiskey maybe and what it is that you do.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you ever so much for having me on tonight. My name is Ed. I first encountered whiskey probably about 8 years ago up in York, where there was a fantastic whiskey club that my best mate Evan and I used to love going to once a month. I then moved to Asia for a couple of years. This was about 6 years ago. And Evan and I said, well, it'd be cool to have some kind of hobby, something that we can do together, something that we can enjoy participating in, despite the fact he was then in London and I was in Hong Kong. So we thought, well, we like whiskey. We could do some kind of blog. Let's just start it as a little hobby. So that's where Top Whiskies and the Instagram and YouTube channels first started. Very much just a pastime, a hobby for Evan and I to enjoy doing on either side of the world. Over the course of the past 4 or 5 years, it's grown really organically and really well. It's been a fantastic journey. We've loved the interaction with the community. We love talking to people about the whiskies that they've discovered and they've found. So that's been a great source of fun for us. And as we've gone on that journey, we kind of thought, well, wait a minute, people are talking about these new brands or asking where they can find them. There's an opportunity here to help people get the whiskies that we love, the indies that we love talking to, and help them access those. So about 6 months ago, end of last year, we started a new website to add to the social media side, which is topwhiskies.com. And that is a retail store that offers some of our favorite brands.
Yeah, nice. It's something I've purchased a couple of bottles from you already.
You have, thank you.
And I think that bringing, so you've got some brands people to recognise, and you've got some of these other ones that are coming through, where I think it's great that you're in a position to be able to do it, and that you are doing it, that you're able to bring newer brands and newer bottlers and things to the public, and to present them and make them accessible for people. And the two that I bought, I'll grab them up in a moment, I'm sure, and show them off. But two Coolilas from Rogers Whiskey Company and Scotch and Tattoos. I think they are sort of sister Coolila casks that I was just so happy to be able to get hold of, because I'd heard about them before. I was excited to try them. I haven't tried, I think, because I still even haven't opened it. But to this stage, I'm not sure. Mick, have you ever tried any PX Coolilas? I haven't. I know they'll be around, but I haven't. Yeah,
that's going to be difficult, because obviously living in Glasgow, I've got some really good whiskey bars on my doorstep. And it's been an occasion where I've had maybe one too many drams and forgotten what I've had that evening.
Occupational hazard.
So it potentially I could have done. I don't know. One doesn't stick out, that's for sure. So it's probably a good chance that I've not, because, like you know, they're not massively common.
No, indeed, yeah. So these, I think, I'll go ahead and just grab them now and say.
Hi, Steve. Good to see you.
Oh, Steve's a regular with us. Yeah, hello, Steve.
He knows one of our regular patrons.
So these are those. I've got the labels lined up. So you've got the Oloroso one and the PX one, which are both set in the same scene, but mirrored and slightly askew. So they're not quite exactly the same label, but it is the same place. And you've got the Christmassy one with your little Christmas cat, and then the summery one here with someone in a nice summery dress enjoying the outdoors. Yeah.
I think that they're a perfect example of what we really love in the whiskey community. So two guys, Torsten and Roger, super passionate about what they do. They decided that they would follow their dreams and create their own bottlings. So they're the two brands. You've got an artisan product, something that, as you say, is quite unusual. You've got two sister casks, unusual finishes. So you're getting something that's quite different. And last but not least, you just look at the bottles and you look at the care that's gone into the design of the labels and almost the expression of what Torsten and Roger personally like. I think you get a lot of their character in those designs. So yeah, two perfect case studies for everything we're all about.
Yeah, I think there's... go on, Mick.
Oh, cheers, Rich. I suppose for them then, really, it's not too dissimilar to yourself and Evan's journey then, do you know what I mean? A bit of a passion then turned into something you can make a bit of money from, do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I think that's pretty good, that you know, you and your pal that started the shop, essentially, are supporting two guys that are really good friends that have done a bottling sort of thing, do you know what I mean? I quite like that.
Yeah, I love it. It's a big part of why we decided to start the shop, and it's absolutely the reason we stock who we stock. We know all the faces behind the brands, like you guys. We've shared a dram with them. We've heard firsthand what they stand for, both as a brand and as individuals. We tasted the liquid, so we know what the quality is. We know what we're offering to our audience. And as you rightly say, it's all built on heart and passion. And there is an element of, as you say, the hustle and these individuals looking to turn a hobby maybe into a job. But by and large, when you talk to a lot of these tiny brands, they're doing it because they think, this is what I love about whiskey. These are my personal favorites. I want to showcase that, and I want others to be able to experience, whether it's Caolila in some funky sherry cask or whether it's sister bottlings.
Yeah, I think you mentioned to me, I think before, that you guys sort of, personally curate the lineup that you have. I think it's interesting there. You mentioned, you sample things that come in. Are you able to do that with everything, or do you do that as much as possible, or what happens with?
We try and do that with everything, certainly on a brand level, and if we can do per expression as well, then we like doing that, so that we know when we talk to somebody on Instagram and they say, I'm looking for a Caolila, what have you got? We're able to say, not only have we got something unique, we've got something that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's nice. I think, and just going on, while we're talking about Rogers Whiskey Company there, I've got to know him over the last 6 months or so. And I think he's such a nice guy. And This isn't a secret because this has come out in his newsletter already. But there's another one bubbling, right? He's got another bottle due to come out.
There is, yeah, that'll arrive hopefully next week on the website. Okay. So keep your eyes peeled. Another great release, as you say. I think it's the world's best kept secret, or worst kept secret rather. Now it is. Yeah, it's a really nice Ben Nevis that he'll be coming out with, peated. It's got beautiful artwork on the front that's very reminiscent of camping, sitting next to a log fire, looking over the Ben Nevis mountain range, and a bit like his previous release, it's just a lovely thing to drink and to admire.
Yeah, for sure.
You're hard pushed to find a poor Ben Nevis.
A peated Ben Nevis, this one is, but yeah,
even better.
Yeah,
even better,
you're spot on, and that's the joy of a lot of the single cask releases. You're getting something that really is quite a unique product, something that's not in all different shops, in all different walks. You're buying something that you can then have conversations like this and say, "Oh, have you tried X, Y, and Z? Let me grab it off the shelf for you. You've got to try it."
But it's not just single cask that you sell, because you've started selling Mackmyra recently, a few weeks ago. You've taken on some of our, but what you wanted to go for, when we were talking about, is you wanted to go for things that, something that's different, to try and keep in keeping with the theme and, the way that you guys operate. So we've sent some interesting things across to you.
Yeah, spot on. You absolutely have. And again, we were delighted to be able to welcome you guys onto the website. As I said when I was pouring my dram, one of the things I love about what you do is the fact that you're so comfortable experimenting and putting releases out there that are unique. Again, we talked earlier about the birch sap wine cask. Yeah. I think somebody was talking about the green tea seasonal. I hadn't come across birch sap wine before, let alone a whiskey finished in birch sap wine. I mean, that's kind of just completely unheard of. But I like the fact that you embrace that. I like the fact that the whiskies are really tasty and that do taste of what they're meant to taste of, if that's not a strange thing to say. No. I think that's kind of exciting and interesting.
I think one of the and Richard probably echo this as well, is one of the reasons we enjoy working for Mackmyra is that probably a lot of it is to do with the seasonal range. I mean, there's a familiarity there for people that like whiskey, right? Regardless if it's Scotch, Irish, whatever, right? There's a familiarity there, and you get that. It's a whiskey, and you go, yeah, that's a whiskey, but hang on, what else is going on there? You're going to get that different edge of something. And that's where we experiment with the cask recipes, with, Christian Joanne Calvados casks for a start 2 years ago for the Apple Blonde, and then working with Glenlivet for the Yak Liquor, and for this year's Bjork Sab as well. And all the guys and girls that we've worked with that have gone before that, it's Quinta de Velado, the port casks for Vintersol.
Yeah.
Just some of the top people at the top of their game that we can bring in to this and offer something slightly different. You're not going to get with a Scotch or with an Irish or another region or another country's whiskey. We really do like pushing that, and that helps us really stand out on the shelf, and especially when people taste it, they go, "Oh, Swedish whiskey, didn't know that was a thing." Well, do you know what? Just try some. And they go, "All right, brilliant, try it." Oh, boom, I'm sold.
I think an important point to emphasise is that it's still single malt when we're talking to people as well. So it's not just Swedish whiskey. Oh, have they done something that's, we still follow the traditions and the basics of what you need to be a single malt whiskey. But then with things that people haven't tried before, I think Mick, you hit the nail on the head by saying there's that it's a whiskey. You can tell there's familiarity there. So it's not something that's completely alien to people, but there are very different things in there. Ed, I think I might have heard of birch sap wine before. Maybe I'd have to dig deep into the memory banks to work out whether or not I had. What we can see here is a range of different things that Carl's showing us of different finishes. There's a rabbit hole to go down whether or not we call them finishes and things, because the recipes for these whiskies, there's not just everything's gone in to be finishing one thing. There's an element of different casks or going into the mix. But to go back to birch sap wine itself, I'd never tried it before. I might have heard of it. I've had to learn about it now. I've had to learn quite a bit, as we've had with some of the releases we've had before. I've not heard of things that might be familiar to Swedish people. But I will say, I'd never tried, I don't think I had anyway, like Oloroso sherry and different sherries, until probably last year. And I did a couple of sort of virtual sherry tastings. But because of the amount of Oloroso finished, in particular, whiskies that I tried, I wasn't anticipating any surprise when I finally got round to trying a sherry, and there was not. And there were some subtle differences, a few nuances here and there perhaps, but I knew what it was going to be like. And I think with the Birchap, with the Bjorksav, even though you or other people might have never tried Birchap wine before, if you have a bit of that Birchap wine cask of ours, that the Bjorksav, and then you were to go and try Birchap wine, I would bet that you would be able to say, oh, that's in there, because it is that and the Effa. A lot of Birchap wine casks went into that, and I can find some similarities between the two. So already my mind has got a map and a link between them. So that so even if you haven't tried Birchap wine before, and you're someone that goes, oh well, I don't know if I like it or not, I don't know what it's like or anything like that, or does it taste like the thing, as you said? Does it taste like the thing it's supposed to taste like? And with this, definitely does. Mick and I in particular, we've had a lot, if not all, of Mackmyra's releases that have come out in the last few years, and this has got something so different about it that you can definitely tell there's there. There's still a few we need to tick off the box, Mick, I think. So when we get over to Sweden, we'll have to go through the back catalogue, but we've done all right.
We've got there's a big Mackmyra fan that joins us. I don't know if he's with us tonight, and I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm not going to insult him. But it's a guy called Anders, and he's like a Mackmyra super duper fan. You can't bend it. Every show we've done, he's always popped up and said hello and everything like that. And he runs a Facebook page, Mackmyra fan or Mackmyra Connection, something like that. Fantastic guy, font of knowledge from Mackmyra and stuff like that as well. And he has literally got, I think, every single bottle going.
Awesome.
It's phenomenal. So I think we'll have to pay Anders a visit when we go over, Rich.
I think so, yeah.
If there's nothing up at the distillery, do you know what I mean? They've only got the last couple of releases or whatever. We'll have to go way back into the tombs of Anders' collection and go, right, okay, Nate. Like the Midnight Soul and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? The Midnights and things like that were from a good couple of years ago. I'd be a chat on the door and go, "Hey, pal, how are you?"
I mean, that's a good idea. He's a bit of our own personal Google if we ever needed to ask him about historical things as well. But talking about the past, I think sort of just to segue into what's happened now and the future. We're talking about, you've got your new website there. Obviously you've been going there for 6 months. Things work. Yeah. We've got a new website coming out ourselves as well.
Awesome.
So what are you doing now with the new website and things, and with what's like the latest news for you?
So our goal at the moment is just to try and broaden out the brands that we have on there. So we're constantly talking to, in particular, lots of independent bottlers, but a couple of the smaller distilleries as well, about bringing them on and showcasing some of their unique offerings. So keep an eye on the website over the course of the next month or so. I think we've got 4 new brands arriving, which is super exciting. We kept the blog aspect of the website, so there's also the reading material there. We do reviews, we do various guides that we publish on the blog, but new for us is just trying to build out that site and make it as useful, interesting and broad as we can possibly make it.
Interesting. Yeah, I think, can you tell us who those 4 might be? Are you able to divulge anything?
Yeah, so we've got Carnmore, Leanne Moore. We've got another release coming from a really tiny bottler called Single Note. This is their first ever expression. It's a guy who loves jazz and he loves whiskey. So he's combined the two into this range, and he's got a couple of new releases. We've got Rogers. We're speaking with the guys in Yorkshire, so File Bay. So yeah, lots to come. How
do we pronounce the guys in Yorkshire, the Spirit of Yorkshire chaps? File Bay. I've always said Filey Bay, but that's just because I
think it's probably Filey Bay. My advice would be, don't ask the guy that absolutely hammered the pronunciation of the Swedish whiskey at the beginning of the call. That would be my advice.
I'll bear that in mind.
I think you've got a good point there, my friend. Yeah.
Like Carl Moore, just as a quick aside, I think we were talking about Peter Ben Nevis earlier. One of my like game-changing like whiskies that I've had was a 4-year-old peated Ben Nevis from Carl Moore from their strictly limited range that I think was bottled 2019 or so, perhaps, or maybe the early stages of 2020. And for me, that was a real like I don't know, breakthrough whiskey, or you know, I don't know what I'd call it, but a big thing, a big like part of my whiskey journey. But we talk quite a lot about, you know, we're a brand that, you know, we're not Scottish, we don't have age statements on there. So there's, unless somebody's like interested in trying new things, there's if you're sort of on a supermarket shelf and you're an average consumer, you might not look towards us, which is why it's so important for us to do tastings and get people trying things. But that 4-year-old mark, you know, there's I spent years thinking that anything and I will say wrongfully so, thinking that anything that wasn't, you know, 10 or 12 years, you know, can it be any good or whatever? But that 4-year-old Ben Nevis, oh my word, that just sort of blew my mind. It was absolute filth. It was like oily and silagey and peated, and I just it was right up my street.
Totally agree. I think I understand why people gravitate towards certain things, in particular in the supermarket. The whiskey world can get quite complicated, a lot of different terms. You slightly gravitate to what you know. I get that. But I also agree with you that actually, if you're comfortable throwing the rule book out the window, you'll discover far more. And things like age, ABV, cask types, those things don't necessarily matter as much as you think they might. Just go out there, try, sample, sip, explore as much as you can, and it will always be rewarding.
Yeah, I think that cask type thing you talk about there, I went through a phase as well, and we're all on a journey, so we're going through phases and our taste change and stuff like that as we go. But I was always, it has to be, you know, a first fill this or a second fill that. Now I'm on a refill binge at the moment, where I want to be able to taste that spirit more than, you know, a wood influence to it. I want to find out what that distillery might be like, and if I find one that I do like, I just want refills from it. Really, you know, I might try, you know, other things and buy other things quite happily and readily, but I've been going through something of a refill ex-bourbon binge, as I've described it there. A binge might not be the right word, but a phase that I'm sort of focusing.
Okay. Yeah.
So when we're talking about age, oh sorry mate, but just quickly talking about age statements. So one of the things we've got, I think that's something that people have, this tangible thing where you can say, oh, well, I know something about this whiskey because it's told me there that everything in it is 12 years old, for example. But we've got something that, and we were talking about this before we started, you know, our product sheets. I think I might have touched about it already, actually, as we've been going. But, you know, where it tells you the casks that have gone in, and starting with the Bjorksav, with every seasonal from now on, we will say the percentages of each cask. Yeah, here we can see the product sheet.
Yeah.
So in the top right, the aromatic profile, that's something we've always had, where it will tell you the sizes of the casks and the types of casks that have been used. And I think that level of transparency, for me, just as a whiskey fan, not as a Mackmyra, you know, man, you know, as a whiskey fan, that I really enjoy being, you know, because you know something that's in there, and having the percentages that we do now is another sort of bit of tangible thing, you know, something people can get, you know, a bit of knowledge about what it is that they're buying, rather than thinking, well, there's not an age on it, this must be 3 or 3.5-year-old whiskey and someone's trying to pull the wool over my eyes, and it's far from the truth. So we have this transparency that I think not many other people do.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. In my head, it doesn't matter whether it's 3 years or 30, whether it's low ABV, high ABV, whether it's first fill, really strong PX sherry, or, you know, second fill, refill bourbon. As long as it's transparent, as long as you know what you're drinking, as long as you're then able to understand why you like something or why you might not like something. I think all that matters is that the facts are there, and then the whiskey lovers can sit back and decide for themselves.
Definitely. So I had a couple of points for the conversation there, and you know, the refill thing, you know, refill bourbon. There's nowhere to hide for the distiller there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's nowhere to hide. Do you know what I mean? You can't cover up a bad run of spirit with you know, a really active cask or anything like that. You know, what you put into that refill cask for however long you're going to put it in there for There's nowhere to hide. Do you know what I mean? You're really going to get the essence of the distillery from that. And the other point is, yeah, people shouldn't get bogged down with age statements and casks and stuff like that. Believe it or not, this whiskies that you find on the shelves go through a quality control process. Somebody in that line has said, that's really good enough for bottling. Let's bottle it. Yeah. It might not agree with your particular flavor profile that you enjoy or the particular style that you enjoy, but somebody will. There's hundreds, literally hundreds of distilleries all the way around the world. Yeah. I'm a big firm believer there's a whiskey out there for everybody. Yeah. If you don't like whiskey, you've just not found your one yet.
Yeah.
Indeed. Okay. So Ed, what about I talked. I don't think I'd use the word epiphany whiskey because I was reaching for epiphany whiskey for the Ben Nevis I was talking about there. But what might yours have been? I appreciate there'll probably be more than one, but putting you on the spot, what do you think some of your influential whiskies have been?
I think you're right. There probably are more than one. There's probably lots of epiphany whiskies. A couple that really stick in my mind include Glenfarclas 15. So just kind of discovering something early on my whiskey journey that was kind of so rich, so oily, so sherried, and really opened my eyes on what that kind of sherry profile can bring to the party. Talisker 18 was another epiphany whiskey for me. I can remember really vividly sitting in a central London bar with Evan and us both having a dram of that, sitting back and thinking, wow, how many flavour boxes have they managed to tick in the one dram? And then I think and this is a cheat answer, but my cheat answer would be the other epiphany for me was the first whiskey festival I went to. Okay. So it's a cheat answer because it's not about one particular whiskey, but I think it's relevant because I think it's testament to what we just talked about getting out there, sipping as many drams as you can and getting a real sense of what's going on from all the breadth of whiskey out there. And I can remember I can remember certainly the majority of the beginning of the festival and exploring all of those drams and just, opening my eyes to the breadth that's out there.
I think that's a really good answer. I think there's that sort of ties in a little bit with what Mick had said, where he might have tried a Cooley, PX, but he's been in enough sort of whiskey bars and tried things and not written them all down. They can't remember. So I'd forgive you for not remembering every epiphany whiskey you had at a festival. But I think that's a really good answer actually, because that's part of the journey as well. Like the first festival that you go to and you think, oh, there's all these things I've never even knew existed, all these different varieties of this, that, or the other. So I think that would just one big sort of walking epiphany, for 2 or 3 hours, however long you might be able to be in there for. I think you can see the top of the Talisker 18 box just over here.
Just in shot.
It is. I've got, no one likes to show off, of course, but I've got a second bottle of that in reserve behind because I managed to find a good deal on it one day. So I've got, because that for me, that was just such an important whiskey for my journey as well. So when I saw the opportunity to get, bag myself a bargain, I went for a backup one of it because I would like to be able to drink that first bottle I've got open freely and not guard it too much as I'm quite want to do with some of mine. Yeah.
Talking about drinking freely, Rich. Talking about drinking freely.
Oh, there we go.
That's roughly our just about halfway sort of point where me and Rich pop in our pocket again and get the second round in.
There we go.
What are you going to have, sir?
Yeah, what are you having, Mick? Have you got another fancy fandangled cocktail? Or?
No, so I'm gonna go. I'm still keeping it on the apple blonde theme. I think I'm just gonna go for an apple blonde straight up as a dram. This again for me, it wasn't quite an epiphany whiskey. What it did for me really was go, wow, what's going on here? I know it's a whiskey. I feel some familiarity with it, but there's something else going on. What is that? Do you know what I mean? And then you start to investigate. It was actually with at a tasting at the Good Spirits Company, and one of our own colleagues, Alex, was hosting the tasting. This is obviously before I started working for Mackmyra, and it's like, oh wow, before that, we'd had port casks, sherry casks, all that sort of good stuff, and you think, and I was a big fan of Mackmyra anyway. That's how come I was at the tasting. But I think it was definitely the apple blonde for me that went, wow. Who else is doing Calvados casks? No one. At that time, nobody had done them, or done them successfully, should I say. And yeah, that was just like, whoa. It took me a couple of drams to actually get into it because I didn't understand what I was having the very first time I had it. Now, you can't keep me off it now because we've got no more bottles available. I'm my last 100 ml sample bottle. I think there's a couple. If you see, guys, ladies and gentlemen, if you see any out in the wild in any of the retail shops, snap them up. Because what's that? 2 years now, Rich. 2 years ago we relaunched Apple Blonde. 2 years ago, 2019 spring seasonal, and it was So that's what I'm having.
Good choice.
My journey with Apple Blonde was exactly the same, Mick. Or pound for pound anyway. So that sort of second or third dram, honestly, when you were saying that, I thought that was exactly what happened with me. But with Shane, like our manager down here, you Alex, and up north, it took me a couple to get into and understand what it was. And touching on what I said about Oloroso before, having had lots of Oloroso finished whiskey or matured whiskey, never having tried sherry, no surprises when I went to it. I'd never tried Calvados before Apple Blonde. I knew that it was apple brandy, but I'd never actually sort of tried any. And having tried some since having that, there was no surprises for me whatsoever because it was so that the taste of Calvados, the influence in there, while still retaining the spirit character that we have. It was palpable, being the flavors and things involved in it. So that's just another example of where you've got our spirit character that is there and can be found, which is what the seasonals are about. The seasonal about showcasing our spirit character, which would be orchard fruits, warming spices, and sort of a herbaceous, herbal sort of undertone, sort of tying things together. But Apple Boom is that whiskey found the nickname of Apple Boom because our orchard fruits of our fresh green apple that you might have, or with the influence of Swedish oak, it becomes sort of baked apple and apple pie. But then you put Calvados in the mix, just apple squared. So, Ed, what have you got in your glass?
So I've gone for one of my good value discoveries for this year, which is Old Perth. So Morrison Distillers have two brands. Old Perth is their sherry brand, and then they've got Mactala, which is their Isla brand. And I think these are great value, really good quality. This is cask strength, so it's 58.6. The price point off the top of my head is around the 40-ish mark. So I think you're getting a lot of quality for a really good price.
Yeah. You generally do with Old Perth. The liquid that goes into a Perth to make it up is fantastic. I've not had I've had Old Perth for a good few years now. I've not had a bad one yet. And lovely. Bully's on. I'll say nice one, Bully.
Yeah, very good. I want is that Bully? Is that the inaugural? You've got a sample of there, or have you been lucky enough to get is it the Mackars or the Maycars single cask that they had that came out? Could be one of those. I imagine the inaugural. I've got a bottle hidden behind me and a sample of it that I'm yet to try because I promised my partner Heather that I'd share it with her, and we haven't got around to doing it yet. So interested to hear your thoughts, Bully. As for me, I've gone for the Mando Dio, a rare opportunity to get a single cask whiskey of ours.
I'm going to put you on the spot, Rich. That's not the actual name of the bottle. That's the name of the band. The name of the bottle is the album.
Yeah, so I'll show that here. I have never a single time have I attempted to say the name underneath.
Would you like me to help you with that? I'm happy to give you a quick crash.
Please do it. Please do.
No, rule up for a laugh.
Professional and natural.
Yeah. Good grief. I can describe the bottle to you. I can say that it's a 200-litre ex-bourbon cask of ours that had our peated whiskey in. I think it's about 8.5 years old, which I think for me, I like a peated whiskey on the younger side. I enjoy very much a more matured and perhaps, let's say, refined older peated dram. But I like a big, fiery, punchy, peated whiskey, any day of the week, especially on a miserable day as it is today, weather-wise. So.
Rich, it means the sunset, right?
Okay.
That's the name. It means the sunset, and this is how it's pronounced.
Solnedgången.
Solnedgången.
Oh, I have a feeling that's what Ed was going to deliver.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I can confirm that is the correct way to pronounce it.
That's it. I did try my best.
Oh, priceless. So Mando, so the name that we can see there, that the one that I'm probably saying incorrectly anyway, is a Swedish band who we've worked with in partnership to bottle this, and I've enjoyed this very much. Mick, I expect you would have tried this by now.
Well, I had that on a tasting. So the guys from the Whiskey Nest, the subscription service, the Whiskey Nest, they bottled some of that as one of their subscriptions for March. So I did a tasting with them last month and covered that one. Yeah, it's a lovely. I think it's our only 200-litre single cask you can buy.
Yeah,
from ourselves. That is. Obviously, there's a few independent bottlers that have done it, but that's our only independent. It's our only bottling for ourselves in conjunction with. But yeah, and in fact, I'm on a tasting with the guys at the Whiskey Nest on Saturday doing apple blonde. So they took the remainders of our apple blonde from the store to do that. So
I think Ed, I'm sure Ed asked me if we had any apple blonde left when you came on board with us, but unfortunately not.
It's the wrong answer, unfortunately.
Yeah. So perks of the job. You know, Mick and I to be able to do tastings and things. We can request bottles when we haven't got any whiskey left of things. But I forgot to ask for any more apple plum, so I've now got like this much left bottle. And no chance of any topping up. So I'm guarding it very jealously at the moment. And you've got this special to have a dram of that with me around here. Yeah. Any plans, Ed, for anything, with the Top Whiskies label on it, perhaps, any inclination to do anything like that?
Yeah, so I think we'd love to do that. I think it's quite a natural, logical next step for us to do. We've loved bringing together these really exciting brands, and we're looking forward to adding to them. But I think putting our own brand in there, our own expression that reflects the kind of whiskies Evan and I like, would be something we'd really like to do. I think what we'd also really like to do is document that journey. So use social media and try and bring everyone into that experience with us so that they can see, the process of choosing a cask, tasting the casks, and then even maybe bits of the process like how do you do the bottling? How do you design your label? How do you physically get the product? Because I think that'd be kind of fascinating, kind of interesting. And I think we can do all of that as quite a nice story. I don't know quite when. It's been a bit of a whirlwind over the course of the past 6 months, just getting things set up. So I'm kind of philosophical as to when we're in a position to take that step. But I'm really looking forward to it, and I'd absolutely love to do it.
It does seem like a natural progression. Oh, sorry, Mick, go on.
So do you know what would really look good with that? Would be a Swedish backdrop to it, Ed.
Oh, you think, panning shots through the Swedish forest, maybe or something like that. And that's a great idea. I love it.
Stunning visuals. Yeah.
I'm sure Rich will be in touch in the week, my friend.
I bet he will.
We can have some conversations, not a problem.
But it does, I think it feels, like as you described, a bit of a natural progression. You've got into whiskey so that you can be, because it's your passion, your hobby, and you described, so eloquently about people like Roger and everyone earlier, but just these guys who just want to be able to, have some skin in the game and just, do something with it. And I think that you've got the perfect platform to do it. Also, you mentioned about, social media and things. Then, how on earth do you juggle? Having 100,000 odd followers on Instagram, how do you keep that up? How do you grow it? Because that must take quite a bit of your time. I don't know. I've never been in the position where I've had that many followers. I've barely broken 900 on Twitter. But 100,000. How do you manage that?
Yeah, if my other half were in the room, she would nod very sadly and say, yes, it does take time. In fact, it takes too much time. Look, it's been a bit of a labor of love. I love social media. I love seeing what other people are drinking, what they think about the whiskies, seeing their beautiful photos. There are people on Instagram in particular that take, almost artwork grade photos of bottles. So it is something I really enjoy. It does take time. My general advice to people looking to create an Instagram channel are post regularly. So I think regularly is defined as 5 posts a week. Post consistently. So decide what your topic is, whether it's cars or whiskey or gardening. Find your topic and then try and stick to your topic so that your channel is consistent. Keep the quality of the content as high and as useful as you can. And then last but not least, Evan would roll my eyes because I always say this, but social media is called social media for a reason. So interact with other people, engage in the conversation, get yourself out there. It's not just about you putting photos out. It's about interacting with other people's content, engaging, liking their posts, commenting. But it's a rewarding, if quite intense use of time.
I can imagine it would be. I think that last bit that you said, sort of just tying all of it together, I can see that as being like the key to it, because you can tick all those other boxes that you've mentioned there, but if all you're doing is just you're sitting in broadcast mode, in transmit mode,
exactly,
and you're not getting involved with anyone, you're not getting in, there will be someone out there that is, and exactly, they will have the attention of some of those other people and things as well. How long did it take you to get to the stage where you are now? When did you start, the Top Whiskies?
So we started in 2016, and it's been a kind of a little bit of a hockey stick. So it probably took us, I don't know, a year to get to 2,000. 10,000 was a bit easier. 20K, pretty easy. 50K, we did fast. And then we went from 50K at the beginning of last year to 100K in about 12 months.
Wow.
So there is that slight element of, once you've got a larger account, more people see your posts, so it becomes slightly easier to grow in the algorithm. But yeah, as I said, my advice would be regular content, consistent content, quality content, and last but not least, social media is inherently social. And if you do those 4 things and you want to grow on any social media platform, then stick with it, be patient, and you will get there.
Yeah,
I think that's my problem, and why all my social media accounts are crap, quite frankly. So, like looking back at the last probably about 10 pictures of my Instagram, you probably wouldn't think that actually I was an area sales manager or a brand ambassador for a whiskey company. You'd think I was an Indian chef. Do you know what I mean? And just stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, I can't be bothered. Yeah, there's a post. Oh, I've got an Instagram. That's right. Yeah, okay. There's a post. Well, oh yeah, that's right. Facebook. Okay, cool. There's a post. Share some stuff in the Mackmyra and that. Do you know what I mean? But I'm terrible with it. I'm absolutely terrible with it.
And you know what? You don't have to have a big account, right? At the end of the day, it's meant to be fun. And if you enjoy posting the occasional whiskey photo, the occasional dish you've made, and the occasional photo of dog, and that's what you like doing, that's a great answer too. That's still totally fine. It's just different.
Could you not just do a mixed curry page and a mixed cocktails page, or?
And then there's loads of pages, and I think I would lose my marbles with that. Do you know what I mean?
Mick, are we looking at? I assume this is yours.
It's bad enough having one Twitter, one Instagram, and one Facebook. Do you know what I mean? That's bad enough. Just 3 accounts for the one. That's more than enough for me. Having then individual separate accounts for different things. No, that is not my bag.
I couldn't juggle it. I can barely. I'm not in. I think I have an Instagram profile that I made in 2013, long before sort of I was ever into whiskey and things. I've got that very much locked now because it's just pictures of me and Thailand or toast that I've made or just whatever it might be. Yet to, which is why you've just seen the names come up there, and mine's just on Twitter, because that's where I've found my niche, at least for the time being. But I will take those lessons, and that, you know, the sort of as wise as they really are as well, and perhaps
something to think about.
Venture into the Instagram world. Ed, we're at 10 to 8. What we tend to do with about 10 minutes or so to go is we ask our VIP patrons what
Rich. That's the bell for last orders.
Seamless.
What does last orders mean, Rich?
Okay, well, now I've heard that bell, it's just reminded me that around about this time of the evening, we tend to ask our VIP patrons what their ideal whiskey scenario is. We appreciate very much that we could ask you this next week and the week after, and it might be different, you know, each time. But here and now, what do you think your ideal whiskey scenario would be? You've got three things: what's in the glass, who might you be with, if anyone, and where do you see yourself?
So I think it's a great question, and one of the things I've said in the past, that if nose, palate, and finish are 3 tasting notes, the other 3 elements of enjoying a whiskey are time, place, and people, because actually those 3 make all the difference to the whiskey. And as soon as you asked me that, I did have quite a quick image. It's a flashback to I think it would be 2 years ago now, definitely pre-lockdown and everything kicking off. I got the opportunity to go to Speyside and spend a week with the team at Glenfiddich. So my ideal whiskey scenario today, in a flashback to that day, would be a dram of Balwinnie 12-year-old, just a nice, straightforward classic, with Evan, who's my best mate and the other half of Top Whiskies, stood in the middle of the ruins of Balwinnie Castle, looking out over the Speyside countryside and just enjoying a quiet dram together.
That sounds very nice. So did I hear you correctly saying Balwinnie? Because I thought I heard you say Dalwhinnie 12, and I thought I've never seen a Dalwhinnie 12.
No, Balwinnie.
Okay. So is Balwinnie, is that something to do with Glenfiddich, or is that a closed distillery? Or I've not heard of it.
So they're next door to one another, and
Okay.
they have a castle, the Balwinnie Castle, which is on the estate right next to Glenfiddich Distillery. So it's kind of one little campus, 2 distilleries. It's a really beautiful part of Speyside.
Wow. Yeah. So Mick, have you ever tried that? Have you ever heard of this?
So, Rich, I think it means the Balvenie.
I always thought it was pronounced with a W.
Right. I do know then. Sorry, I should have put 2 and 2 together when you said right next door to one another, because obviously they are next door to one another and can intervene and things as well. Okay, right. So if I've never pronounced it with a W, but if you've been told to do so,
yeah, I might be wrong, but yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
So we had Charlie Metcalf, an ambassador for I'll say it how I've always pronounced it, you know, from the Balvenie, joined us a few weeks ago, and I'm not sure, maybe he just didn't say the word Balvenie at all, perhaps, or perhaps he did. But interesting. If there's anyone in the comments, any of our patrons with us now that know whether or not it should be a V or a W, please do let us know. But now that I'm with you and I know what you've tried before, definitely have tried that dram. That for me was one of my whiskies that got me into the game as well. Steve thinks that perhaps we might not be able to put too much stock.
Yeah, I've just seen Steve say that. It's a fair cop. Yeah. I'm on fragile ground, so I'm not going to fight my corner.
So we'll say the you've got a 12-year-old whiskey from the neighbouring distillery to
well put.
And you're with Evan and in the castle. So I've pulled up outside the grounds there. I've never been to the castle itself. So this is new to me, actually, what Carl's showing us here. This is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Gosh, isn't it? Yeah, I had no idea there was a castle there. Mick, were you aware of the existence of a castle? Nodding along. Okay.
But Balvenie is one of my all-time favourites. So much so a couple of years ago I sponged out like properly on the Doublewood 25. the limited edition Balvenie 25-year-old double wood.
Very nice indeed. I
Not
wanted to
enough.
do a tour there a little while ago. It's quite difficult to book tours, or it was in the past. I think you're quite good. They didn't run too many of them, and I've been very keen to get there.
They don't generally do like a normal distillery tour type thing. You have to book on. It's more of like a master tour type affair.
Yeah, if you can get on it, it's well worth it because it's very hands-on, behind the scenes, tiny distillery, a lot on site, and I kind of think they're the best tours, the ones that you do put a hard hat and a high-vis coat on and really go behind the scenes.
They're generally the ones that I tend to look for if I'm going to go visit a distillery. They're generally the tours that I look to go on anyway.
Exactly.
And they do their own floor malting, I think, or at least in part they do it there, and I think that's interesting. Being able to go and see that at Highland Park was there a few years ago, able to pick some of the barley up off of the floor, run it through my fingers, and the same at Bamore, doing the Craftsman's tour there in 2017 as well. These really in-depth tours where you get to go and actually sort of touching things rather than just having that pot passed around at the beginning of the standard thing that you do, and you've smelt all of this before and you can't smell anything in there. I think something involved when you're in the mix. And I appreciate you've spoken about Evan a few times. It's obviously such an important part of what you guys do because it's the other half of your operation. What do you think his? I don't want to answer too much on his behalf, but what do you think his ideal whiskey might be, and would it be with you? And where do you think you could see him sitting to have it?
So I reckon he might go to another day trip we had on the same trip, where we went with Dennis Malcolm of Glen Grant, and there's a great story of we'd done the distillery tour, we'd done the behind the scenes, and he said, "Okay, great, I'll be back in a moment." And he disappeared, and we thought, that's a little bit odd. He's just left us standing effectively in the road. Maybe he's gone to call us a taxi to take us home because the tour's ended. But he came back 3 minutes later in a golf cart. And right, in you get, into the back. So we were like, oh, okay, do what the man says, into the back of the golf cart. And he took us through the orchards at Glen Grant, describing his childhood, describing growing up as a kid, picking fruit from the trees. And we got to the end of a river gorge with a little kind of waterfall coming off it. And he said, right, stop the car, or golf cart even, get out of the golf cart. And we thought, okay, right, fair enough. Where are we going now? And he took us through the river gorge, up through the cliff on this little wooden platform, pulled out a massive old iron key from his pocket, plunged the key into the cliff face, and opened what was an old metal safe embedded into the cliff face and said, "This is the Major's safe. This is where he used to come for a quiet dram." And he pulled out a bottle of whiskey, poured 3 healthy measures, and we just stood watching the river go down the river gorge, sharing a dram together.
Wow. Yeah.
That sounds pretty spot on. That I'm going to be honest.
That was special.
Well described. I can sort of picture it as I feel as though I was there, and jealous that I was not at the same time, I think. But that is magic. I think that's sort of that little experience that you can have. Yeah, great. Well, I think that but just about wraps us up for about 8 o'clock. We try and make our pub sessions around about an hour in length so that we can get off, have some dinner, or go to the real pub. Mick, I don't know if you've got any plans. You're off to do another tasting, I think, aren't you?
Well, I'm off to see the guys at Belfast Whisky Weeks. I'm off to see Port Kane. So if you want to hear me chat some Mackmyra stuff, and I don't even know what the schedule is. Paul phoned me today. Went, Mick, what are you doing tonight? And I went, nothing. I've got a show to do, obviously. I'm down the Mackmyra Inn. We've got Ed on. So, all right, brilliant. He says, you fancy coming on the Belfast Whisky Week show? Okay, cool. What time? He's like, and he sent me the link to do it. It's on StreamYard, so it's going to be through the Facebook Belfast Whisky Week. And I have literally no idea what it's going to be about. None. I'm going into this proper blind.
Mate, you've got the skills to make it up as you go along, Mick. I'm sure.
I hope so, Rich. I hope so.
Ed, any plans for you this evening, or anything interesting we should be looking out for? You mentioned the other brands that you guys are going to be having on, but any sort of closing message that you might want to?
Yeah, well, look, I'd say thank you ever so much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure to share a dram and catch up. Do keep an eye on the website. As we said, we've got a couple of really exciting brands arriving. And if anyone wants anything at all, help, advice on Instagram, recommendations, introductions, just drop me a message either on Instagram itself or on my email, which is just ed@topwhiskies.com. And always delighted to hear from good whiskey folk.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, we have absolutely loved having you on. I can say that on Mick's behalf as well, because I can tell, I can see that he's had a good feeling about this one. So thank you so much for giving us your time, coming to join us. It's been very good to have a jam with you. I hope very much that we can meet Ed at some point in 3D and share a dram or a bite to eat or whatever it might be at some point in the not too distant future, I hope. Fingers crossed for that. And if we can have you back again for something in the future, we would love to have you back very much.
We must get Evan on with you as well.
Absolutely, we'll invite us on, and we'll do the Ed and Evan pronunciation lesson on all Swedish terms.
Top Whiskies versus Swedish Whiskey Go.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's
I feel we're at a little bit of a disadvantage there.
Yeah, featherweight, heavyweight in the pronunciation game, I think. Yeah,
we have to bring in mine and Richard's teacher. Do you know what I mean? We have to bring Moa in at the end of the day. If there's anyone who's going to boss it for us, it's going to be Moa.
Yeah, bring in the big guns. Yeah, sounds about right.
I'll stand behind her and let her take the game. I think.
That was my plan. That was my plan.
So yeah, I'll say thank you everyone who's joined us, our patrons. We really appreciate you guys coming back week after week. Very much, as I said, appreciative of it. We hope to see you again next week. Ed, stick around for a moment if you want to have just a quick dram afterwards, and before we all slip off for our dinner. And Mick has his other engagement that he's just going to, as you said, he's got no idea, but he'll work it out. So I'll say thanks, Carl, in the background. Great skills, Carl, by the way, on sharing some of those pictures as rapidly and readily as you did. Really good. I think we're becoming very streamlined as a crew. So very much, up for a bit more of that. So yeah, I think that we'll leave it there. We'll see you next Wednesday, where we're back. We're joined by Madeline Schmoll of SMWS, the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, for a dram at the inn. And might see some of you tomorrow for our monthly tasting that we have. So I'll say good night from me.
Good night. Cheers.
Skål.